But this one's a little cracker. It's not quite finished. It is interstate, but Dave resides up here, so it's got a few twists to it around joint venturing as well. Dave's been to our launchpad before, so he's definitely out there implementing the knowledge, which is awesome to see. So let's get him up here. Please welcome David Hinds. Come on down, mate.
Thanks, Matt.
Cool, mate.
Oh, am I on? I'm
Yep.
on. Yeah. He's right. This is the best part of the night, so lucky you. Okay, so thanks for all taking part. I'm going to go through and just introduce the deal that I've done. Or it's, as Matt said, it is still currently a project. It's nearly finished, and you're going to see why it's not finished in a minute. And you're also going to learn a few lessons that I've also learned. So buckle up. But before that, a little bit about me, just because I can, because I'm up the front. I am first and foremost dad to these two. Prior to those two, I had lots of hair. I'm sure there's a few dads out there who can understand. 18-year-old daughter, Eleanor, and my son, Joseph, 15. These are just some photos we took back in June. My daughter, I asked her what she wanted for her 18th birthday, and she said, I want to go to the Greek islands. Who can argue with that? She's a father's daughter. I'm also a bagpiper. Just put it out there as well. And I'm a property developer. It's what I do full time now. So I got out of the corporate world about 6 weeks ago, actually, and decided it was time to just do it. Like, balls and all, let's do this. No mucking about. How did I get there? I was at Launchpad in March 2022. March 2022, I went to Launchpad. I first met Matt Christmas prior to that. I knew nobody. I'd got introduced to the group. I went to the Christmas party on the boat, and I met a few people. I came along to this, found out about Launchpad, decided if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it. I went, and my life has never been the same since. And it's been a ride, and there's lots to learn. And as you just saw from the last presentation, there's lots to learn. I came back from that Launchpad with a much clearer understanding of many things, specifically around joint venturing. Property development can be really lonely because you're doing a lot of the work yourself. I love joint venturing. I love working with other people because none of us know everything. And it's really good just to have a different lens on the same situation. I see things one way and somebody else can see exactly the same thing but see it in a different way, and we can come up with a different solution. So I do a lot of my stuff in partnerships. I just find that it's a really good way to do things. Matt introduced me to a potential JV partner, and I started to do my due diligence on that person and the project, and that project happened. The original plan for this site, it's 2 homes, side by side, number 17 and number 19. This is down in Bendigo in Victoria. The original plan was to renovate. Now, both of these properties are heritage listed, so we couldn't demolish one, which we did want to do, and you'll see why in a second. So the original plan was renovate the properties and then subdivide the back, so make it 2 into 4. That was the plan. That's what we did our feasibility on, and that was where we were heading. This is what we bought. How good? Who doesn't want that? Hey? Awesome. Number 17. That's exactly what looks like something from the Addams family or something. It's just crazy, right? Derelict, obviously nobody living in it, but there was a tenant in this property. It was livable. I get excited about stuff like this because you're going to see why in a minute. How did I fund the deal? This is a really good question because obviously everybody looks at these things around, or how do you get the money? How do you do this? And so there was a couple of ways that I did this. So firstly, we drew up a joint venture program, a joint venture agreement, of course. We signed it. We made sure that we both knew who was responsible for what in the project. And that's really important to understand what you're bringing. If you're going to do a joint venture, what are you bringing to the table? and what is the partner bringing to the table. You need to have different things. You can't both be doing the same thing. Obviously, it was prepared via the solicitors. We both signed it and we got on with it. The project was managed in Bendigo. I live in Brisbane. Clearly, I'm not project managing that project. The JV partner was responsible for managing that project, and I was responsible basically for funding it. That was my input. I funded it through, we set up a company. I had a job back then, so I could get money. Interesting fact, when you do go full-time and you don't have a job anymore, the banks don't really like you anymore. It's a lot harder to get that kind of money, but you don't need to worry about that. I used my serviceability. I got a loan. I borrowed the money. You'll see the numbers shortly. It's all up what it cost us. And then I used equity from my own home. Does Siri want to talk to me? I used equity from my own home. Matt said before, has anybody got a property? And yeah, if you have, then you've got money available. So you can utilise some of that cash to do part of the deal. In this instance, I did both. So that's what it looked like. This is number 19. This is now finished. And this is why I get excited. Because who doesn't think that that looks really cool? Who doesn't want to live there? It's for sale. I'm just putting it out there. If you, can we do an auction right now? We got time? Look, it is very rewarding to take something that looked like that and make it into something like that. Now, granted, I didn't do it personally, but I had a lot of input into how it looked and felt and what we did along the way. So, a few more shots about this particular project. You can see, the kitchen, there was people in this property living there, so it was okay. There was nothing wrong with that kitchen. But what you don't see, or you can see those two pieces of timber across there with the French doors. Yeah, that was a French door to nowhere. There was 1.5 metre drop outside that. That's why those boards were there. There was no deck. There was nothing. It was literally you step off, you won't die. Well, you might die, but you're going to break a leg. We just renovated it. We repolished the floors. We got a custom-made kitchen put in. We just modernised it. We updated it, and we made it look like a house that somebody would buy today. The bedroom, same thing. We did literally, I look at that, every time I look at that photo, I just think, oh man, this person just didn't know whether they were a Maroon or a Blue supporter. They couldn't figure it out, so they just went both ways. All we did there was we painted it, we cleaned it up, we put some new carpet in. There was no real expense in doing that room. Same with the front entrance. Look what happens when you just put a fresh lick of paint of a nice white, open, fresh colour. It's not rocket science to do this sort of stuff. The stained glass, this house was just covered, as you can see. All the windows were stained glass, just fantastic. It is a period home, so there is a market of people who really like this kind of stuff. The bathroom, I didn't have any photos of the before bathroom, which is probably not a bad thing because I have seen it. But this is what we did. We actually did reconfigure the whole thing, so there was never a bath. The laundry was inside the bathroom. It was very pokey. It was a really dodgy sort of an area. We gutted it. We knocked some walls out, and we created what we created there. New bath. That shower is in the back of the bath, so you can actually somebody could be in the sink, and the shower is private down the back as well. So it actually opens up the space really nicely. And we also stopped you from dying when you walked out the back door. We put a deck out the back. Beautiful little area to just sit and enjoy. You can see the size of the block of the land, how long it is. This is why we decided originally that we would subdivide it. When I went down there after we purchased it, I probably did it around the wrong way, but I bought it and then I went down there. When I got there, I stood at the back corner and I looked down towards the back of the blocks, and I saw how narrow they were, and in my mind, it didn't make sense to me to subdivide this block, because what you can't see, or you can sort of, see how close those houses are? Well, that's a carriageway. That's the only way down to the back of the block. So that would mean if you had two houses down here, everyone who's coming to live there or visit them, is driving past, and you can see that's only about just over 4 metres wide. So their side mirrors are scraping the side of your house as they drive down. It just didn't appeal to me, and that doesn't necessarily make it wrong or right, but for me, I looked at it and thought, I wouldn't buy that block of land. And so why should I expect somebody else to do it? And that's sometimes I go into, or most of the time I'll go into a project and look at it, I want to do it the way, if I wouldn't live in it, then why would I expect somebody else to? And I sort of have that mindset around it. So we discussed it, and we both finally agreed that I was right, had a win. But what I did see was the opportunity for that long, because that's a big yard, right? There's 2 things we could do there. One was put the man shed down the back, but the other one was a granny flat. The issue with Victoria is Victoria doesn't like granny flats. You're not allowed to have them. However, this is 12 months ago. There is 3 councils in Victoria who were trialling to see if granny flats could actually be a thing. Go figure. And Bendigo happened to be one of them. So we could put a granny flat on this property. And so we pivoted. And we decided that's what we would do. So we went out, we got the quotes, we talked to the builder, we redid the numbers. The issue is we were only going to make 50 grand more profit on the job if it all went to plan. 3 more months of waiting because it takes 3 months to build these things, all the extra capital involved to do it. To me, for 50 grand, it just didn't make sense because that 50 grand can disappear pretty quickly. If things don't work out, you don't get the sale price you want. Something comes up on the services, subdividing, all that kind of stuff. So again, we made that call and we decided to pivot again and just renovate the 2 properties. And I think it was a good idea. We came across a number of hurdles. The first one was, as you saw from number 17 from the original pictures, there was pretty much nothing good about that property. We had council come out and we stood at the front curb with them and we said, guys, come on. We just want to bulldoze this and build new. And they were like, nope, it is heritage listed. Sorry, but you can do everything you want you have to keep the front facade, but everything behind it, you can do whatever you want. So we did. We literally just kept the front wall and the good thing about those old houses is they're bulletproof. I mean, they are made of hardwood. They just, even though all the facades were falling in and it looked really bad, the bones were really good. And so we knocked a few walls out, we did a few bits and pieces, and we recladded it and we re-roofed it, and we basically built everything from the front back is new. But it gave us an open opportunity to change the floor plan because it's an old California bungalow. So for anyone who knows what they are, they're pretty small from today's standards anyway, the McMansion sort of world that we live in. And so it gave us an opportunity to be able to just reconfigure the floor plan and make it into something that was a little bit more appealing for today's market. I already talked about the decision not to subdivide, put the granny flat, didn't work. We've had huge delays with council on this. We still don't have that carriageway between the 2 properties because what we did, you saw the fences that we put down. So we put a fence from the rear boundary up the middle, and then we put gates across either side, so that meant that we've got off-street parking, which is very appealing because most places out there don't have it. So it gives access to the rear of the property, off-street parking, but that carriageway between the 2 properties, we're still waiting for council to get. Now, bear in mind, we bought this back in August last year, and it's now moving into October this year. So yeah, councils can drag things on. The project has run over time for a lot of reasons. One was because number 17, one of the things we had to do was re-stump it. It was, you walked in there, I mean, if you could even walk along the floor, most of it was missing, but if you could put a marble on, she would have just been like a speedball. The whole place was falling apart. It took us 4 months to find somebody who could do the job for us. So it sat there with nothing happening for 4 months. And even then, they were out of Bendigo. We had to get somebody to come in and do it. So getting trades can really impede timeframes. There's lots of things that can make these projects blow out, and you've got to be really cautious of that. And probably the most painful part of this whole process was that we bought it in August 22, and what happened around that time last year? Every single month since we've owned this property, we've had an interest rate rise. Who factors that into your feasibilities? No one ever, is the answer, if you didn't know, because it's never happened before. So, again, another costly exercise. Nobody knew that that was going to happen. Between council delays, increased costs of holding costs because of the interest rate increases. Still want to renovate, guys? Still want property? Who's loving property development now? But look, it just means that you've really got to know your numbers. You've really got to make sure that you've got enough fat in the deal for these things to go wrong. Expect things to go wrong because they're going to go wrong. So here's our numbers. We bought both those houses for $700,000. Bargain, right? You saw them? Who didn't want that? $700,000. Costs, so all in, when we look at what we've done with the renovation of both of them, the mortgages, that probably needs to go up a little bit now because that was done back in May. It's now September, so it's a pain point. I don't want to think about that anymore. We're all in somewhere probably just under 1.1 million. To sell them, this is what we budgeted on. The reality is we're probably not going to get those numbers, and I'm going to touch on that in a minute. But if we did, this is the actual feasibility that we did back in the day, other than I changed the renovation and I took out the costs of the subdivisions. And we re-established because had we subdivided and sold the two properties, we would have sold the properties for a lesser amount, but we would have still made that same sort of gross total because we would have got money for the land. So it was all pretty much same. We would have made $250,000. And we still may. I mean, it hasn't sold yet, and never say never. We've got a few things that we're working through, but there's about $250,000 worth of profit in this project. We were meant to be out in April. It was really, we were looking for, we bought in August, we thought we'd be out by April this year. And that would have been really good if we were, but we weren't, and we're still not. And so that number is probably, it's still realistic, but it's probably going to fall short a little bit. We're still going to make good money out of this project, there's no question about it. And for me, like I said, I haven't had to lift a hammer. I haven't had to do anything. Well, that's not true. I've done a little bit. I've had phone calls and I've flown down there and had a look around and done stuff. But it's not a bad way to make $100,000. Let's just call it $100,000. I mean, you know, some people don't make $100,000 in their job. They work 8 hours a day, 48 weeks of the year in. That's taken a year, but if I took that money today and didn't work for the next 12 months, well, that's a year's income that I can do stuff with. So it's the way you think about it, I guess. So there were lots and lots of learnings and takeaways. Probably the three key ones that I've put up here is you have to be really open to changing tactics. Don't go in tunnel vision and go, this is what we're doing and that's all we're doing, because as I just went through, things change. You know, it doesn't always make sense to do what you've always done. So being able to pivot is pivotal, if I can say that. It's really important, and this is where I think having a JV partner also is helpful, because sometimes you've got that second person to bounce the ideas off, to have those conversations and say, guys, or say to each other, this isn't going to work, this is what I'm thinking, and you can come up with that with a happy medium. Timeline. This is probably the most important lesson out of this whole project, is have a clear timeline and have it set out so that you have a project management timeline of everything that's got to be done. Because if you're going to renovate a property, you need to buy and sell it in the same market. Does anybody think we're in the same market as we were at the beginning of this year? I can assure you we're not. And that's going to hurt us. You know, had we sold this back in April, around April, May, when we'd planned to, we would have got those numbers. we're not going to get those numbers now. We're going to get a little bit less. Maybe we'll get them. Depends on how long we're willing to hold on to the property and maybe do some other things. I can't stress it enough though, if you're going to do it, buy and sell, get in, get it done and get out in that same market. And I think it goes without saying, if you're going to do a JV, it's got to be clear communication. You know, you've got to be talking to each other weekly or as often as you need to. It's a relationship. You know, if you're not good at relationships, don't do a JV. It is a and there's a lot of money at stake. It's a relationship. You know, it's a kind of a marriage without the certificate. There's just as much money involved. That's me. I've got the wine. This is who I am. This is what I do. This is my company, and I'm sure someone's going to ask, so I'll answer it for you anyway. I always get, what does DELJO mean? It's just an acronym for me and my kids, so it's David, Eleanor, and Joseph. It's pretty simple when you hear it out loud. I do money partnering. I do joint ventures, as I've said. I do renovations and I do subdivisions, and as many of those as I can do in a JV situation with anybody who's interested or wanting to, feel free to reach out, give me a call. Nothing asked, nothing lost, nothing gained. And I think I'm done.
Well done, mate. Round of applause to Dave. Stay there. We'll just see if we've got some questions for you while you're here. Yep.
I'm just wondering if you did a pool plan, and if you did, how much did it divert?
Did a what, sorry?
A pool plan?
Pool plan?
A pool plan, like you establish your goal, the end goal, and then you work backwards, incorporating...
Oh, a pool plan, okay.
Pool plan, yes.
Yeah, sort of. I mean, that feasibility that was up there, I mean, that gave us, we knew what the property would be worth, roughly, based on the due diligence that we did and what we looked at. So we kind of knew that we wanted X amount of profit, and we saw that happen through that process. We didn't do it in reverse order, though. I guess we just looked at what our costs were, what we knew we could probably sell it for. It came up with a number we were both happy with, and we did it that way. But the reverse way of doing it works as well.
Yes, very well.
Other questions for Dave?
I answered them all during the
Oh,
presentation.
nailed it, mate, yeah.
Hey, nailed it.
Oh, hang on one more. Nearly got out of it.
Great presentation, thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Just interested, you talk about the market changing. So what do you specifically mean down there?
So when we purchased the property in August 2022, interest rates were down. When we finally got it renovated into market, well, two main things happened. That was one, and the week that we put number 19 on the market, our good friend who just resigned today pulled the pin on the Commonwealth Games, and Bendigo was set to really benefit from the Commonwealth Games. So Bendigo just went... So again, this is what I'm saying, timing is everything. Get in, get out in the same market. So the market in April, before he made that decision, was as good as it was when we bought the property. Fast forward, and it takes one dumb decision from one dumb politician to ruin your project. I mean, and these things are outside of your control, right? So it's really important to get in, get out as fast as you can, because the longer you hold it, the longer you have to, the risk is real. And so the property market in Victoria now is nowhere near what it was 6 months ago even. And that's what I mean. Like it's these outside circumstances that we have no control over. I had no control over that happening. And had we put it on the market 3 weeks earlier, before he made that decision, we probably would have got a contract on it, and it might have even been unconditional, and then it wouldn't have been my problem. But unfortunately, it happened in the same week. I could talk about. But you know, it is what it is. This is a game we play. So that's what we signed up for. Does that make sense?
Just before we go to the next question, putting the deal aside, what would you do differently now from a JV perspective? Because now you're moving full time into deals, so JVs are going to become a bigger part of what you do.
Absolutely.
What's the key thing that you would do differently, or maybe a key lesson for those that are thinking about doing collaborations in this way?
Yeah, I think the key lesson for me, and it's not a pain point necessarily, but I definitely now, especially that I'm doing it full time, is that I would keep it closer to home. where I've got a little bit more control over day-to-day what's going on. Not to say that, you know, there was anything that I could have really done necessarily, but I think, you know, when you're removed from Victoria to Queensland, you're not as across it as you would be if it was in Brisbane, because is where I live, because I would be driving there a lot. I'd be checking it out a lot, you know, and you can't do that when it's interstate necessarily. So that's probably my key takeaway is if you're going to do it, and it comes back to how much you want to be involved in it as well. Some people don't want to be involved, they just want the end result, and that's okay, but you have to also respect each other's money and time.
Yeah, and there's probably two delineations there. Joint venturing is when, you know, you're borrowing money, you're on title, it's a collaboration together, whereas a money partner, if you were just putting cash into this deal, it's a set return, you know, that you have no control over what's going on, you're not helping out with any decision making. So yeah, it's the difference between whether you want to be a passive person or someone that's a bit more involved, in which Dave was. Yeah, so two different things. Yeah, Neil.
Yeah, great presentation, Dave. Have you considered, while you're trying to sell it to, is it a good location for Airbnb, keeping in mind now that the Victorian Premier is now going to introduce a 7.5% levy on Airbnb? So I'm just thinking...
Honestly, we've talked about maybe renting it out. That poses other issues. I mean, when you got your money tied up in it, that cash means that I can't get that cash back out to go and do another deal. And so it kind of just depends on everyone's situations are different. Maybe do we put then we put a tenant in, and then somebody comes along who wants to buy to move into it, and they go, oh, it's got a 6-month lease on it or a 12-month lease. No, I want to move in. It's no good to me. So it's kind of...
That's why Airbnb might be an option, but you've got to do your numbers, of course.
Do people go to Bendigo for Airbnb? Who goes to Bendigo for a holiday?
Hey,
if you don't have a motorhome. Victoria. Not anymore. There's nothing to do there.
It's just an option.
Yeah, no, I agree. Look, and this is the thing. There are lots of options, and you have to be aware of those sorts of things. And that's where, you know, again, having a partner involved can come up with other ideas if you haven't thought of them yourself. You've got to have multiple exit strategies on any project, of course, but I didn't foresee this. And so we're at the business end now where number 17 is 85 and probably 90% renovated now. And so we face the additional challenge of, are we going to end up with 2 houses side by side on the market at the same time? God help us. That's not going to be helpful. So we probably are going to have to rent one out. I mean, or rent both out and change my strategy and say, well, okay, I've bought that as a short-term rental property. I'll sell it when I can, but at least I'll have income coming in. So again, like I said before, you've got to be prepared to pivot your mind. Things don't always work out the way you hope that they will, so you've just got to be prepared to make the change of circumstances.
Yep. There's one more there from Janet.
Hi, my name's Janet. The way I make money is I agree with you with the half of the idea is if we find some potential buyer, they would like to move in. But the way I make money for 1 year for 200,000 is I straight away put in the tenant, and I make the best of the rent. So when the potential buyer, they come and they bring that rent to in the street, they only rent for 500, 600. I rent for $850 a week, and straight away the bank approve for the buyer without thinking. Yeah. Because they make money straight away on that. So sometimes we need to step over our gray zone. And you have 2 choice because you have a half of that. So I haven't seen is the idea how you marketing to sell your product. I learned a lot from what you go up to now. But because we complete project with very clear how many options, because if you have one house, it's different. But when you have 2 houses, you need to create the version, the idea, the best for whoever they come to join you today.
Yeah, no,
Thank you so much.
Yeah, well said. I mean, it's only been on the market for a month, so you know it hasn't been sitting there for a long period of time. But a month is a month, and another month's going to pass, and then another month. So we just need to. when we did make that decision, do we rent it out or do we not? So
And the whole renting side of it, it's different when you've got two parties involved. It's not just you doing it. So people want to exit generally. They go into a deal to collaborate, to make a profit. And if you've stuck in there renting it, well, that's not the outcome. It might have to be the outcome and you have to agree on that. But you've got to be mindful, if that's your exit strategy to hold, then you want to know that you're in there with somebody that you want to spend that time with going forward. You know, generally you get to an end of a JV and you want to exit and maybe start another JV together, but close that book before you open another one. Don't drag it into a business relationship, you know, where there's no sort of ending to it. But yeah, all really good points though. Yeah, we'll have to get you back, mate, and see the final result, see what happens.
yeah, we're close.
Yeah,
Awesome. One more.
One more quickly, yep.
G'day, Pearson Hart speaking. Just wondering, any recommendations on selecting sort of a suitable JV and due diligence you do around that?
Yeah, I think it just comes, for me, it's we go back to the beginning of the night where Matt talked about integrity and stuff. I mean, it's rooms like this where you get that, and to give him a shameless plug, the Launchpad is, again, I mean, I think you get to a point where when you're in a room with people like that, there is integrity in the room, and they've already been vetted by people like Matt. And they've already done deals with other people in this room. And so when I did my very first deal with somebody else who was in this room, I already had a sense of trust with that person because of where and how I'd met them. And I'd been able to speak to other people in the network that had done deals with them before. And so it just gave me that sense of, okay, I feel good about investing because it's a lot of money. You know, let's be fair to income. You're just not going to go and hand over your money to somebody that you don't really know. I mean, due diligence is everything. It's paramount, is all I can say. And places like this is how you find them, in my view. It certainly worked for me.
It's probably the bit that most people skip over. You get excited about the deal and the numbers and the money, and we're all going to make $1 million together. It's exciting. Most people skip over the bit where they need to do the due diligence on the people.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing. You know, the deal's obviously got to stack up, the money's got to be there, but the people involved, you know, that they have integrity, that they have problem-solving abilities together, they can communicate well, their risk profile's the same. They're there for a win-win, you know, not a win-lose. You know, they're there in it together. That is paramount to all of this stuff working. Without that, doesn't matter how good the deal is, it can go pear-shaped. And there's going to be challenges. Every deal has them. Those of you that have done deals, you'll know that. Every deal has a challenge. So you want to be with somebody that knows how to work through that challenge together, you know, not turn into a fight, you know, blame and disputes. You want to sit down and go, hey, we've got a problem here. What are we going to do? Let's work it out and get the best result together.
And personalities, you know, different personalities just are not going to work together. So it's pivotal that you know that. I mean, don't get, like Matt said, don't get caught up on the deal. The deal of a lifetime comes along every week. Don't get caught up on a deal. You know, you will find another deal. But if you don't get the partner right, it's going to potentially ruin your life, or it's going to make that period of time not pleasant.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be in that position. Yeah. You know, nobody goes into it thinking that, of course. Like I said before, it's a relationship. Nobody goes into a relationship thinking that it's all going to fall apart. You go in with the opposite view. And it's all smelling like roses until it's not. And when it's not, you don't want to be there. So, yeah, paramount to find the right person.
Good question, guys. I might leave it there a little bit over time, but please thank David Hinds. Thank you so much, mate.
Thank you, mate.
Thanks very much. Yeah.